Hello, I'm Eric Aldrich, and I'm the Literature Coordinator at Pima Community College in Tucson, Arizona. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the role of an instructional strategy plan in the design process of an online course. I've been the subject matter expert or the faculty subject matter expert on several course design projects, and I was asked recently on my most recent project to use an instructional strategy plan. And I didn't quite understand how it fit into the process. It seemed like a lot of work, and it seemed like trying to plan the whole course from the outset, rather than doing it over time and allowing the process to evolve. And honestly, I felt a little uncomfortable with it. And so I wanted to look more into the role of the instructional strategy plan and understand better how it fits into the design process so that I could understand it myself and so that I could explain it to other people if I'm working in the capacity as an instructional designer and I'm asking someone to do an instructional strategy plan. So the audience for this presentation is faculty members or subject matter experts who are just embarking on the course design process, and you've been asked to use an instructional strategy plan. And so this presentation focuses on, why do we do that, and what is the point of this helpful document that it ends up being like a roadmap to your design process. So in this presentation, I'm going to do a few things. We're going to define what an instructional strategy plan is. We're going to discuss the role of course learning outcomes in the design process, because course learning outcomes are the backbone of an instructional strategy plan. We're going to explore how CLOs guide that plan. We're going to consider some principles of universal design and how they affect instructional strategy and design ideas. And lastly, we're going to review other aspects that you might use in an instructional strategy plan, such as time on task and the materials that you anticipate asking your students to use in the course. I included some questions, planned some guiding questions that you can be thinking about while we go through this discussion, like why is an instructional strategy plan helpful for planning online course design? How do course learning outcomes guide the instructional strategies and assessment processes? What does universal design ask instructors and designers to consider about how students learn? And why is it important to plan your time and materials? So this is what an instructional strategy plan template might look like. And so if we're defining what an instructional strategy plan is, it's exactly what the title says it is. It's your plan for the strategy that you want to employ in the instruction aspect of your course. What are you planning to teach? How do you plan on teaching it? And what are some of the ways you're going to assess your students' learning? Are you using sound principles of universal design in your planning? And how long is it going to take students to do each assignment? This is important for things like Carnegie hours, making sure your course, meets the requirements to award students credits. And then you're going to plan your materials. So what I want to say is one of the things that gave me a little pause doing this before the design process was that I didn't know the answer to all these things. And it at some points felt like trying to sit down and plan a course in sort of one fell swoop, when the way I usually plan and design a course is a long process that involves a lot of creativity. And if you're a creative person, you know that creativity can't always be rushed. And you also know that creativity sometimes objects to templates and forms that look like this, because they feel binding or they feel restrictive. So the first thing to remember is that the instructional strategy plan is a plan. It's not a instructional strategy commitment. It's not a contract. It's a plan that you're going to use to see how the different aspects of your course fit together, see what you already know you want to do or that you're already doing in a course to make sure that you meet all the course learning outcomes or objectives. And you're likely designing the course with the help of an instructional designer. And so even though all of these aspects of the course may either feel really familiar to you or nebulous if you're in the creative process, your instructional designer is not the subject matter expert, you are. And so that means that the instructional designer can really use an outline of the vision that you are planning for your course. And so we start with really basic stuff like what's the course name? You put your name or the name of the instructor. A little description of the course. This can be either the official description of your course, or it can be a description that you think would be helpful to the instructional designer for understanding the main overarching objectives of your teaching. And then your target audience. This might be your student population. Usually it'll end up being your student population. And you might describe that student population a little bit here, because again, you know your students. Your instructional designer will have varying understanding of who exactly you're targeting. So think of this as a way not to bind yourself into something or plan your entire course at once, but to create an outline for you and for your instructional designer. You're not committing to anything. It's just an outline that will help keep you on track. This is an example of what a completed instructional strategy plan might look like. This is one that I created for a science fiction literature course. And I used my official course description as my course description. And then the target audience, I tried to explain who would be taking this class so that the instructional designer that I may work with, I think it's going to end up being me. But if I were to work with another instructional designer, I can ask one of my friends or colleagues who does instructional design as well. Sometimes it's helpful, even if you are the instructional designer, to work with someone else, because two heads are better than one. They may have learning management software ideas or visions that you might not come up with. So even if you are capable of doing the instructional design yourself, you may want to work with a colleague who is an instructional designer just to have that cooperative aspect. So I explained the target audience. For me, that would be undergraduate students, local high school teachers, usually attaining general education credits or continuing education credits, and interested community learners. I just get people from around the country who like science fiction who take my courses. And so you can see that the instructional strategy plan asks you to consider a few things. So the first one is the learning objective. This is your course learning objective. This is what your curriculum department has approved, or your department head, whoever is responsible for approving your learning objectives, maybe your department. This is the column, and you see I have quite a few course learning objectives here for science fiction. And so in this column, you would list out all of your course learning objectives. Yes, I have 7 course learning objectives. I like to have my course learning objectives, be pretty specific and outline all the things that I want a student to learn. And so then we start next with our instructional strategy. So how am I going to teach students to define science fiction and define speculative fiction? Well, the way that I've done it is I have a lecture, which is a video that I created. I do give them some readings as well that go with that lecture. It's kind of a fun video, resembles a YouTube video. And then I have them have a discussion where they post their definition and then comment on one another's definitions. Are there things that they agree or disagree on? Do they see science fiction as slightly different than speculative fiction? I have them have a discussion. And then I assess their understanding of the definition of science fiction or speculative fiction through that discussion post. I review what they write. I give them, it has to be 250 plus words, and they have to comment on someone else's. And then I go and I review that discussion post and see how well they understand the definition of science fiction. The next column asks us to consider universal design principles. And there are a lot of different universal design principles. You don't have to highlight every single one that you do, but you want to make sure that you consider universal design with these steps, just so that you are considering your students' needs. You might think, wow, I made the best video, but there are some people that, they kind of don't like the video as much. They may instead want to read something. And so then, I give them readings to do that. So it says content presented in multiple ways. And so I just note that I've used video, reading, and audiobooks because content presented in multiple ways is a principle of universal design. Also giving students options, some agency in guiding their own learning. That is another principle of universal design. And so I give them choices of readings. They can either read Arthur C. Clarke's 9 Billion Names of God and or Isaac Asimov's The Final Question for this unit. I give them choices about how to respond because it's a discussion post. They can either write about one of those stories or choose a story of their own as their example for the definition of science fiction. They have to do some open-ended research. I don't tell them where to get all of the sources to define science fiction. And then every now and then someone wants to post a video, and so I just have a little comment that if you don't want to write both sections of the post, I have a section about the stories and a section about the definition. You can choose to do one of those as a video. So that's options. Time involved includes the time involved that it would take me to create the materials in the course and prep. And then also, I may comment on how long it will take students to do it. So, I would guess that it would take me about 4+ hours to prep everything. That means, read all the sources I ask them to read to make sure they're good, review the stories, type up and, come up with all my assignment instructions. That generally takes about 4 hours. And then making a video takes a couple hours. You have to record it and edit it and try to make it look nice. So it takes a little bit of time. Then, of course, responding to all the students' work takes quite a bit of time. There's often 20+ students defining science fiction. And so it takes, quite a bit of time to respond meaningfully to all those students. And then I note here how long I think it'll take the students to do it. So they have to watch the video, they have to do some readings, they have to write the response. And so over time, after polling students and asking them and gathering information, it seems like it would take them about 4 to 6 hours to do this assignment. And then lastly, we have our materials column. What am I going to need? I'm going to need a D2L discussion post. I'm going to need some readings that are either free or open education resources. And then I need my video creation tools. I personally just use my cell phone most of the time. I use DaVinci Resolve as my video editor. Right now, to make this video, I'm using OBS Studio. And so I would just note what materials that I need. And as you can see, this would be helpful both for you as the person who's designing the content and for the instructional designer. So the instructional designer knows that they're going to have to create a discussion post. They know they're going to have to post content of multiple different types and somehow represent the options to students in a way that is easy to notice, recognize, and follow. It gives the instructional designer and the subject matter expert a concept of how long it'll take to do it in time. And then it gives you both an idea of what materials or resources might be needed. So this is just a basic instructional strategy plan for a course that I already created. And it worked pretty well. It was helpful. But again, you don't have to always stick with exactly what you came up with. If I say wanted to change this from a discussion post to some sort of a creative video project, I could do that. And my instructional designer would work with me. It's not like, nope, you put in the instructional strategy plan, you were going to do a discussion post. So now you are bound by the laws of the universe to complete the assignment in that way. This is, again, it's a guide, it's a map, it's meant to be helpful, and it's something that allows you to communicate and organize throughout the process of designing the course. So to summarize what I've spoken about in this presentation, an instructional strategy plan is a roadmap connecting your CLOs to your online course design and instruction goals. It's a plan that communicates with the instructional designer, and it helps the subject matter expert plan their time and their process. Remember, the plan is not set in stone and can be subject to continuous modification and improvement. But one of the most important things is it makes sure that all of the course learning outcomes are taught and assessed. You remember, the course learning outcomes are sort of your contract with the student. It's your contract with your department in terms of what's going to be taught in the course. You might change the materials, you might change the instructional design strategy, but the course learning objectives are what students should get out of the course, regardless of your instructional design strategy or your instruction. And so a course instructional strategy plan makes sure that you address all of those CLOs. So I hope that this was a helpful presentation and that it's been useful to you thinking through the process of creating an instructional strategy plan. Thank you.